Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about the recent AFL draft, in particular the first round, which was just last night. And we're going to talk through where some of these next generation guns landed at their new clubs and just how they might be faring fantasy-wise for their careers ahead. So let's have a look. First up, the consensus number one pick in the draft was Willem Dersma, who ended up heading to West Coast Eagles in the least best kept secret of the draft this year. A highly talented prospect who can play just about anywhere on the field and revels in his versatility. Dersma has played as a marking defender, deep forward, and even on the wing, but he has saved his best work as a tall midfielder who can go forward and hit the scoreboard, which he did very, very often in his draft season. Dersma plays well in big games and has been seen as the number one pick contender for the last 3 years, and that came through last night. Killed it in the combine and has been a top 10 running and standing vertical jump test as well. And that's for someone who is 193 centimeters, has been likened to Bontempelli, and self-proclaimed that he was going to be the Batman that West Coast needs for the future. So really highly touted, really, really keen to get in there, I think, and just get started in his career, and someone that's just going to change the game for West Coast for the years to come. So really exciting, and you can't really put a ceiling on him fantasy-wise, I think. Depends where he gets played position-wise, can play anywhere. I imagine he'll end up with Harley Reid in the middle and eventually will be very, very similar to Bontempelli in the way he moves and gets around the ground, and just his presence is going to be everywhere for the next 10, 15 years. Zeke Ewan went at pick number 2, and Gold Coast made the bid on that one after West Coast selected them. And Zeke Ewan didn't really play much this year. He was out with a back injury for a lot of it, but he did enough in his first year as a bottom major to make sure he was going to be a top 3 selection this year in my mind. Just an absolute workhorse and speedster around the ground and down the wing. Likened to Errol Goulden in the last couple of years as well. So fantasy-wise, that is a huge tick. He's a Gold Coast Academy prospect, obviously. He's been there for a while. He's been preparing to get to the Suns and is just made it there last night. He runs hard, kicks well, takes the game on, and makes the game unfold to his whim. He tested at the draft combine and placing second overall in the running vertical jump. And pretty good jump on him there. So just a workhorse that's going to get games early. And again, likened to Errol Goulden, just tick him onto your fantasy lists. Whether he pops in his first year or not, going to be tough to break into that Gold Coast side early, but I'm pretty sure he will. He's going to be an absolute superstar for the years to come, Zeke Ewan. Now, this is where I think the draft got interesting straight away. And that's the fact that Harry Dean went at 3. And I think that is very appropriate. He is by far and wide the best key defender in the draft, in my opinion. And Carlton was always going to pay anything they could to get him there. So to see him go at 3 was really, really exciting in my mind. The quote for the night was that mock drafts were up in flames after the first 3 to 7 picks, I think. Everyone had just completely shuffled around. And Harry Dean landing at 3 is just what Carlton's going to need for the next 15 years. This guy's just a lockdown key defender that's going to be spoiling and learning off Jacob Wiedering as well. And just someone that's going to be playing games early as well, I think, next year. He's a key defender, so he's not really on my fantasy radar, but one that's just going to come in and hit the ground running. I think he's just huge frame and has the running capacity to go with it, which is pretty scary. So Harry Dean at 3 makes sense. And Carlton, very, very happy to take him wherever they could, I think. Cooper Duff Tytler was the pick that West Coast finally made with their 4th pick in the end after 2 bids previous. which is good because I want to see clubs pay up for their academy players, to be honest. So this draft really did show that. But here's the West Coast pick in Cooper Duff-Tytler, who was, people were thinking he'd be number 1, maybe number 2, and he is number 2, really, if you take out the academy players. And there's a reason for that. He is a big, huge ruck unicorn that has the speed and the agility to, yeah, very, very similar to Luke Jackson, supposedly, as well. So just an athletic ruckman for the future that's going to probably come in the next 3 or 4 years and really cement that spot in the West Coast lineup, I think. So, yeah, a unicorn of the game. He follows up like another midfielder, apparently, and can go forward, I think, is another big element that West Coast needs. I did it playing for Essendon VFL side late in the season. And yeah, there's obviously going to be some growth there with a ruckman. Takes a few years to get going, but this guy is the real deal. And yeah, fantasy-wise, maybe not next year. He should get some games, definitely, but we won't see him pop numbers-wise, stats-wise for a few years, I think. But keep an eye on him, lock him away in keeper leagues. Could have a number 1 ruck in 10 years. The bids kept flying in this draft, which was fantastic to see again, because it really set the tone for the draft and makes it so that the players who are most talented went when they were supposed to. They didn't slide. You know, people weren't just saying, oh, he's going to be going there, so we won't put a bid in. No, clubs were making people pay for their players this year, and in particular, Gold Coast paid big time for a few in the first round, and Dylan Patterson was the second one off the bat here. Patterson has been a superstar and just a full of flair in his draft year, really surged up the rankings this year and just showed us what he had. Just a speedster, innovative, just really, really creative with the ball and able to just fly past opponents, gets off the halfback a bit, gets down in the midfield as well. And I've seen him kick a few goals just because he's speeding past his opponents. So someone that Gold Coast is going to put straight into their round 1 contention, I think, because of just the flair he brings and the speed that he can bring. And yeah, he's got the NRL background to him as well. So I imagine he's got a great step on him, can really sidestep his opponents, and yeah, that explosiveness as well. So Dylan Patterson, going to be interesting to see how he plays out fantasy-wise in his career. He could be similar to like an Isaac Smith, I think, just like a real run-gunning, consistent winger, maybe, or yeah, someone that maybe gets down the half-back as well, which could be interesting. So yeah, Dylan Patterson, he's an academy player, so he will be locked and loaded, ready to go for the Gold Coast next year, and yeah, he could be popping in the first 2 or 3 years. I reckon he's a genuine superstar. Another bid here in the first 6, which was just great, making these clubs pay up for their academy players. Richmond put a bid in for Dan Annable after Dylan Patterson, and the Lions quickly snapped up Dan Annable, their gun inside midfielder prospect for the next 10, 15 years. He's been a part of their academy since I think he was 12 or 11. And so someone that they had invested heavily in for the last half a decade. And there's a reason for that. He is just a premium ball winner, inside midfielder. In my opinion, the best inside midfielder in this draft. Surprised he made it to 6, in all honesty, but I'm glad he didn't slide any further than that because he is a superstar. You got to make the Lions pay up for their players at this point after getting the 2 Ashcrofts, Marshall, Fletcher. They really slid a little bit, especially Marshall and Fletcher, who are wildly underrated in their draft years. And so I'm glad to see that clubs made them pay for Dan Annable, because he's just going to come in as a direct Lachie Neale replacement in my mind, or even an improvement. We'll see how his career plays out. But yeah, just a genuine superstar that racks it up, just contested beast, and can't wait to see him in the Lions colours next year. Finally, at pick 7, Richmond did make their first proper selection, and that was in the form of Sam Cumming, who was a bit of a surprise to me. I thought he was maybe going to make it to Essendon, and this is where the mock drafts really kind of went up in flames, I think, because a lot of people were expecting Sullivan Roby or Xavier Taylor or someone, maybe it was slightly different, I thought. I thought Cumming was a lock and loaded for Essendon, but Richmond jumped on him, and I think that is an insanely fantastic pick for Richmond, to be honest. This guy is an athletic beast, inside and outside midfielder, rated by all the clubs and is a top 10 player across the board throughout the year. Adelaide, who was in the carnival and racking it up alongside Dyson Sharp, and they had a fantastic national championships, the South Australian lads, and this guy was at the forefront of it. So yeah, did really well at the combine, just showed his athletic prowess, and just has that determination look. Look at his eyes there. This guy means business. A little bit of a baby face to him, but don't let that fool you, because this guy comes to play. And fantasy-wise, he was, racking it up for the national championships and in the Sandful as well, or the under-18s, I think. And just an absolute premium midfielder for Richmond. Could be well on track to be there early next year with how Richmond has been. Obviously, they've been at the bottom. They need to really get some of these guys on the field. So seeing him get on the field with Josh Smiley or Kane McAuliffe potentially, and obviously Taranto and Hopper, and I reckon Prestia might be on the way out. So this guy could be a big Prestia improvement for the Tigers, and in the future to see him alongside some of those other guns that Richmond has drafted: Lawler, Smiley, McAuliffe. He's the best. That's a freaky midfield now, and really interesting to see where Richmond's going to be in the next 2 or 3 years. Up next, one of the bolters for the draft, because a lot of people were thinking this guy could slide. This guy was well on a couple of teams' radars as well. So a bit of a mixed bag. He ended up going at 8 to Richmond, and I think they were locked and loaded to take him. He was always going to be a Richmond boy. And Sam Grill, known as the Sizzler at his local club, and really had a freakish combine testing, super fast, sizzling speed off the halfback flank and on the wing and in the midfield. Likened himself to Zach Butters on draft night, which just makes fantasy managers really frothing at the mouth, I think. We'll see how he fits into the Richmond lineup early next year. I think he played some VFL games for Richmond this year, so he's already got that connection there, and I reckon he could be an early shout for a game next year, and we'll see how he goes. I reckon he could really make a splash. Essendon then was able to take their pick in Sullivan Roby, the bolter for this year's draft, who came out of nowhere maybe 3 or 4 months ago after switching teams to the Eastern Rangers in the Coates Talent League. And Eastern Rangers, he was able to make a difference and really help them get through to the grand final and win the whole thing in the end. So we saw a lot of Eastern Rangers boys go last night, and this guy is at the top tip of that echelon of players. Just a sizable unit who's just grown a lot in the last year or two. I think he's grown 17, 18 centimeters in the last year or two, and puts his body on show on the field. Just a big body with the speed as well, who's able to get forward. So in my mind, I see Dustin Martin, I see Christian Petrarca, I see that big forward, speedy, explosive option who's able to hit the scoreboard. And fantastic pick for Essendon. I think he's going to really be in the round 1 contention for next year if his body's all good to go. And just one that in a couple of years, maybe because he's not going to be an inside mid, he's not going to be racking it up early. He's going to be that forward option. So fantasy-wise, might take a couple of years to come good, but that's exactly what happened with Christian Petrarca. After 3-4 years, he became an absolute beast in the fantasy community, and I think that's exactly the same trajectory for Sullivan Roby. At pick 10, I thought this was another mini bolter for the draft, was Jacob Farrow heading to Essendon. And a prospect with real upside has clubs very interested in top rungs of the draft. And yeah, it showed last night. I thought he might have made it a bit late into the teens in the draft and maybe even made it to West Coast or a Western club, but firmly in the eyes of a lot more teams than we thought, I think. And this guy didn't have any allegiance to any teams. He had every jersey in the league on his wall. And it looks like he's finally picked a team and he's going to be an Essendon fan. But yeah, a speedy, innovative defender, midfielder hybrid who's got that leg speed and yeah, just IQ for footy as well. So I think that's a great pickup for Essendon. They're obviously in a little bit of a restructuring area at the moment, and this guy was probably the best prospect out of Western Australia this year. So really showing, yeah, the stretch of and the scope of even the Victorian clubs, and seeing the echelon of talent in the West and bringing it over here. I think that's great. Similar to a lot of Western Australians that have made it into the top 10. So yeah, seeing him in Essendon colours could be interesting. I could maybe with Nick Martin out a little bit. I could see him very similar kind of way to how Nick Martin was in the halfback role. Could we be seeing him taking kick-ins even for Essendon maybe, if he can get into that round one squad or early next year? Maybe we'll see him down the halfback. So we'll have to wait and see where Brad Scott deploys him at Essendon, but another really interesting one to keep an eye on over the preseason. Another Eastern Rangers boy at pick 11 for the Demons in their first selection, and that was Xavier Taylor, who, in my opinion, one of the best key defenders in this draft. Just fantastic aerial game, able to spoil, take a mark, and just has that attitude to him, to be honest. He had a very well spoken at the draft last night, cool as a cucumber. Already got some markings on his arms and things, so he's got some style about him. And I think he's kind of that rugged defender that could really come in and, yeah, be the replacement for Stephen May or something in the short term or long term, sorry. He's definitely a highly touted defensive prospect and one that's just going to slot down back and do that job week in and week out, I reckon, with no fuss. Look at that face. He's come to play, this guy. So Xavier Taylor at 11, thought he might have gone a little bit earlier last night, but I'm sure the Demons are ecstatic to have a player like him coming in. Another bolter, I think, for last minute in the craziness that was the last few days before the draft. A late call-up on draft night and was able to sneak in last night at pick 12 and, get up on stage and with his cousin, Cozzy Pickett, because they're cousins playing at the same team now. So that could be a little bond there that could spark something in the future. Could be a forward option that we see really take flight in the next few years as well. So one that's really popped off the page last minute. And he's got that extra year to him as well, I think. So, yeah, just one that's really exploded, really come and popped off the page in the recent weeks. And, a well-deserved pick 12 for the Demons. I think they're ecstatic to get the same kind of Pickett blood running up forward there. So that's going to be exciting for the years to come. Essendon got one of the steals of the draft, in my opinion, in Dyson Sharp at pick 13. A strong-bodied midfielder, Sharp knows how to dominate clearances using his strength, power, and footy nous to win contests. Competitive beast, he was a star player at the National Championships, averaging 27 disposals at 76.6% efficiency, along with 11 contested possessions, 5 tackles, and 6 clearances to lead South Australia to the title. And let's not overshadow that. He did lead them to the title. It was on his shoulders. This guy is a contested beast. He's right up there, I'd say, second best inside midfielder to Dan Annable, in my opinion, but they're very, very close. He was the Lark medalist this year, so previous Lark medalists, Zach Butters, Leo Lombard, Riley Sanders. the top echelon of draftees get the luck medal, and he got it. So this guy is not to be taken lightly. He's also an Essendon supporter growing up. So I think to get his boyhood dream to go to his favourite club, and not only that, Essendon needs midfielders. Zach Merritt could be on the way out at the end of this year, and a few others leaving as well. So this guy to come in is a big tick for Essendon. This guy is going to be a 200-game player easily, and I reckon he could be well in contention for round 1 next year, and alongside Merritt. God, who else is in there? Caldwell, Merritt. There's Hobbs is gone. So, I don't know. There's going to be a few opportunities for him, is all. I've just blanked on the other Essendon midfielders, sorry. But I definitely think there's a place for him early next year, and I reckon he's going to hit the ground running. Absolute beast. Harry Kyle was then bid on by the GWS Giants, and that was snapped up by the Sydney Swans as he is one of their academy players. Kyle took the eye of clubs through the year with his dashing runs from halfback and through the midfield, playing with the Allies and the Swans Academy. He could even be he was the very first Swans player off the board. A lot of people thought it might have been Max King or maybe Carmichael, who we'll get to, which was an interesting one, but he had a fantastic combine. He just blitzed every single athletic challenge at the combine, just an athletic freak. So clearly Sydney sees something for him in the future. We'll see where he starts his career. I think he will start down back. Maybe as that running, dashing, rebounding defender, and maybe we'll even see him taking some kick-ins for the Swans, which could be interesting. But see where he starts next year, whether he gets a game early. Swans do like to play some of their academy players early on in the season. We are still waiting for players like Angus Sheldrick or Caden Cleary or a few other Sydney boys to pop off. So he might be in a bit of a line there to take off. But once he does, keep an eye on Harry Kyle. Could be one to stash away in your fantasy leagues. The Giants then took their first pick in the draft, and I think I nailed this one because I thought straight away, Oscar Taylor, defender. Around that mark in the draft, I think he's heading to the Giants, and that's exactly what happened. Taylor, fantastic rebounding defender and just has great kick on him, great IQ, and wound up being just a bit of a bolter as well for that Eastern Rangers squad again, who just had a great Coates Talent League championships. Blitzed the combine as well, just a speedy option down back. Just really going to bring that run and carry, possibly a Whitfield replacement or up there with Lockie Ash just to help out. Could really see him being a 3rd or 4th tier defender early for the Giants, and I reckon he could be bringing a solid fantasy game with him as well. One of the fan favourites from the draft last night, I think, was Lockie Doverston, who ended up at North Melbourne. Just an absolute larrikin and just someone that you just want on your team to give that awesome vibe, I think. Not only that, he is an incredibly crafty and amazing small forward who just gets the ball in all sorts of niche pockets and just makes it his own. And just has that incredible attitude towards his football and towards the club. So I really think he's going to be a very, very welcome addition. And small forwards at North Melbourne, not too common and don't get much praise. So I reckon there's a big opportunity for him at North Melbourne. And again, he's just a cool cucumber, this guy, and I can't wait to hear him get interviewed after kicking a bag of 5 one week. That's going to be fun to hear. Jai Murray was picked up by the Gold Coast. He was bid on at 17 by the Eagles, I think, and this guy was kind of up and down in a lot of draft boards, is where the draft boards, I think, a lot of them went up in flames because a lot of people didn't have this guy in their list till maybe the 40s in the 2nd or 3rd round of the draft. But being picked up by Gold Coast at 17 just showed that there were some clubs very, very interested in this guy. And there's a reason for that. This guy is a fantastic running medium defender, wins the ball in one-on-ones and is a fierce competitor, tidy ball user and strong decision maker. So he's really that kick-in option or defensive distributor out of halfback. He racked up the fantasy stats in the Suns Academy games that he played this year, and for the Allies, he was averaging 100. I'm pretty sure in his top age year this year for the Suns, and in the Academy games national championship, he was also averaging up to 93, I think, as well. So someone that gets the disposals and is just a go-to distributor out of the halfback. And I think he is very much the underrated Gold Coast Sun of this batch of academy players. And he's going to slot in early, I think, and could be one of the best fantasy defensive prospects from this draft. Back to back here, the Suns had to bid on both their players, who really stretched out their points because these guys went much earlier than a lot of drafts were predicting them to go. But Bo Adensell, in my opinion, is one of the most premium ball users in the drafts. He is a contested inside midfielder who has the outside game to go with it. He's just silky smooth, has the running game, he's incredibly fast, and also has just that real athleticism and vertical jump to him as well. So he's able to run and take high marks as well. So just a midfielder that gets around the ground, incredibly creative with his ball use and disposals, really like handballing it every which way. Beautiful kick on him. Really underrated, to be honest. I really, really rate this guy. And if you're in a fantasy league, especially a keeper league next year, I would not go past Bo Adensell. If you see him there in the second or third round, pick him up. He's going to be a gun. The Eagles picked up Josh Lindsay at 19 here, and I reckon that's a little bit of a slider for this draft, but maybe with all those academy and next generation picks we saw early, then it was inevitable that a few players were going to slide in this draft, which is good, again, because people were paying up for their academy players. So we're going to see these kind of players slide, and Josh Lindsay is a very, very good defensive player. Incredible kick to handball ratio. Love to take the kick-ins and get it on his left boot. Definitely the best distributor from the defensive half in this draft, I would have to say. So someone that's going to have it on his boot a lot. People want the ball in his hands. So going to West Coast, I think that is very, very interesting for starters. I thought he was going to end up at the Giants or maybe the Demons or something. But he slid all the way to West Coast, and he's going to fit in there. I think there's a real revolution happening at West Coast this offseason and last offseason, and there's going to be all these kids coming through. There's a few there already, but I reckon Josh Lindsay is going to make his mark because they need him. They need someone like him. They need that Duggan Hearn kicker from the defensive 50, and I think he is the man to do that. After a few trades in the draft, the Hawks had that pick at 14 or 15, and they kept going backwards, and they picked up a couple of round 2 selections in 2026 draft to go back a little bit in this draft. And they ended up going back to pick 20 there, and they picked up the South Australian forward option in Cameron Nan. And this guy on the night, they were saying it very similar to Jack Gunston in the way that he plays his football. He's that kind of lean, athletic, tall, but not too tall because he is able to get that speed in his game as well, but able to get up and take the marks as well, and just a booming boot on him and hits the scoreboard. So Hawks love to pick up a forward in the draft, and here's another one for us. We'll see if he can make it into the starting lineup next year. It's going to be pretty difficult to crack into that Hawthorn lineup, but one to have a good depth option, I think, for Cameron Nan, someone that could really bring some excitement and kick a few goals for us next year, I reckon. Lachlan Carmichael got picked up by the Western Bulldogs in the end. He was a Sydney Academy or NGA prospect, Swans Academy prospect. And not only that, he won the MVP for the Swans in the under-16 championships and just has had a really prolific draft career so far in the last 2-3 years. Just a fantastic rebounding defender, an excellent distributor with decision making. This guy had a fantastic fantasy year in his draft year, averaging over 100 for the Swans and also right up there in the National Academy for the Allies as well. So I think the Dogs have really picked up an absolute gem here, and this guy could really come into contention early for the Dogs, I think. They're shuffling things around at the Western Bulldogs defensively, and yeah, they might need someone to distribute the ball down there with Bailey Dale, I think. This guy could very well be that Bailey Dale replacement in a couple of years. It's just, people want the ball in his hands, and I think he's going to get it at the Doggies. I think that's a fantastic fit. Hopefully, Beveridge doesn't stuff him around too much, though. Mitch Marsh went to the Adelaide Crows at pick 22, and I'm not talking about the cricket player, but we'll see if those two can get on a conference call at some point. That'd be pretty interesting. But no, the footy player Mitch Marsh ended up at his homegrown boyhood club of Adelaide. The homegrown South Australian is just elated, I think, to be at the Adelaide Crows with probably some of his favourite players in Tex Walker and Darcy Fogarty, and he's going to be making a big difference there in the next few years, I think. He's just that big forward option that also has the athletic ability to go with it, finds the scoreboard at will sometimes, and yeah, just, again, that homegrown boyhood team goes with it. So I've always loved to see that connection with players, and I reckon it brings another element. They put in that extra, effort because they love that team, So that's just a good pick, in my opinion. Adelaide would be happy to get him, and I'm sure Mitch Marsh is stoked to suit up in the red, yellow, and blue next year. Aiden Schubert got picked up by the Hawks at pick 23 last night. So this was a big slider for the draft, and I'm sure the Hawks were just ecstatic to see him there, to be honest. Another forward. We love picking up forwards in the draft. But this guy he's picked to be, he was the best full forward in the draft on a lot of people's cards. And a lot of people had him in the draft rankings, maybe even close to top 10, early teens at the latest. And he ended up at pick 23. So it just went to show how people were drafting yesterday. A lot of defenders, a lot of midfielders in the first 15 to 20 picks. And so these full forwards, just slid and slid. So to pick up Schubert at 23 is pretty unreal, in my opinion. I think he's going to come in and just hit the ground running. This guy is lean, mean, able to take a mark, able to kick it 60 meters. An absolute deadeye as well. So really excited to see Schubert suit up in the brown and gold next year. Welcome aboard, son. Can't wait to see you next year lineup. Harley Barker made his way to Geelong, another blondie for the Cats, and one that's going to really give them some excitement for the next few years, I reckon. He is just a running midfielder with that just physical element to him. He's a bull on the wing, able to hit the scoreboard as well. Unfortunately, has had a bit of an injury setback at the end of this year. He did do his ACL, but he did say last night that he's not too far away from running again. So hopefully we'll see him in the preseason getting back to it. Next year, I can't see him cracking into the Geelong team too early. Geelong, pretty well known for not playing the kids too early, but they do like to put the time into their kids to make sure they're right to be playing when they are playing. And I think this is one that they're going to put that time into over the next 2 years or so before he really takes flight. But yeah, Harley Barker, fantastic option for the Cats. Another hard-running blonde midfielder. Maybe even put a headband on him. We'll see. And the final pick for round 1 in this year's draft was the Essendon NGA product, Adam Swade, who ended up going to Fremantle. The Fremantle Dockers had their eye on him, and Essendon did not match it. In the end, they had their fun with their other 3 picks in the draft, and they thought they'd let Adam go. But Fremantle's picked up a fantastic option here, a lovely small forward, zippy option, really going to get up the front with Bolton and the rest at Fremantle in the next few years, I think. Yeah, missed his bottom age career, but came out this year for the Calder Cannons, and I think he was averaging 25 disposals there, and also was just a handy small forward as well. So yeah, just someone that we'll see if he gets a game early next year. Fremantle, very interesting position they're in. They got some old guys, got some young guys. Saw them play Murphy Reed last year because that guy is definitely a gem, a diamond in the rough, I thought, in last year's draft. And this could be another one here. They have poached the Essendon prospect and taken him out west. So we'll see how Adam Swade can fare with the Fremantle Heat. And there you have it, guys. That is the first round of the AFL draft wrapped up with a couple of insights into where these guys might fare fantasy-wise in the years to come. And really interesting to see where these guys have landed and how they will fit into their teams in the coming preseason. Fingers crossed these guys can make the most of their careers. And yeah, some of them I reckon we're going to be talking about for years and years to come. So fantastic first round. Look forward to talking about them for years to come, guys. Stay tuned. See you in the next video.